Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Buddy. My ham radio call sign is KB5ELV, and I haven't done one of these kind of things in a while. Actually, haven't done any YouTube videos ever. So yeah, good times. All right. Just some history. Long time ago, bunch of years ago, I put together some guides for some of the earlier inexpensive Chinese handheld radios, and I made some guides that were specifically geared towards blind operators. The first one I did was for the Quansheng UV-K5 in 2010. Shortly after that, I did one for the Quansheng UV-K5, and then the Quansheng UV-973, and I guess people thought they were useful because they're still getting downloaded occasionally, and even by sighted hams as well. So anyway, after the Quansheng came out, there were lots and lots and lots of Quansheng lookalikes and knockoffs and clones and similar things, and there wasn't a whole bunch new going on. Well, apart from the open firmware for the Radioddity GD77 and others. But I have a specific interest in lower cost equipment that blind operators can use. And so when recently something new came out that seemed to be getting some attention, clearly I was very interested in that. First of all, I'd like to thank Quansheng Electronics for providing a couple of radios to test and to review. So thank you to them for providing that. Here we go. So what we're looking at here today is the Quansheng UV-K5. So far, it's not super easy to get because they're still working out U.S. distribution through Amazon and whatnot, but it can be had through Chinese sellers on eBay, also through AliExpress. It's also available under a couple of other brand names. I've seen it as Wirui UV-K5 and Aniseku UV-K5. But the Quansheng is the one that I have. It's also the one that at least, I don't know if the others have it or not, but the Quansheng has the FCC Part 15 authorization. So looks like the most recent ones are legal to sell in the U.S. and also a couple of the most recent tests show that they are within FCC specifications for harmonic suppression and so forth. So let's have a look at it. As it happens, I have two of them here. I have one that's all set up, and part of that is going to be useful because we're gonna look at the over-the-air cloning, which is kind of a neat feature that I haven't seen on anything else. Actually, I think Kenwood might have done it back in the 80s, but I think they used DTMF touch tones to send radio data over the air, but we'll talk about that shortly. So let's see what's in this box. I've got this box, and it's a small box. It just, it always amazes me how small these boxes are because, when I got my first handheld in 1989, the box was a lot bigger. So let's open this guy up and see what we got. All right, so we have a manual. Very thin manual. Actually, the manual, I've gotten it online, and it's pretty decent. It's not perfect English, but it's understandable English, and as these things go, it's pretty decent. We've got the radio itself, and we'll go through a physical description of it here shortly. So we've got the radio, we've got a battery, 1600 milliamp hour battery. And that's all in one tray, and then in the tray below that we've got an antenna rubber ducky antenna. The antenna has an SMA female connector on it. The radio has an SMA male connector on it, which is how the Baofengs are set up, as well as well, a lot of the Chinese handhelds, but it's opposite to what the amateur radio standard is. You're talking about the Kenwoods and the Icoms and the Yaesus. It's opposite to those. There is a wrist strap and a charging cradle and a belt clip, and that's it. It's pretty basic. So let's talk about putting this thing together. It's a little bit. Okay, what did I do with the wrist strap? I lost the wrist strap. Aha! There it is. All right, so let's put this thing together, and we'll talk about it as we go. The hole for the wrist strap, as you have the front panel of the radio facing you, is on the back rear top left corner. So the easiest way to get this in is to turn the radio upside down so that the back is facing upwards, and then you just have to thread the top of the wrist strap through this little tiny hole, which, yeah, there we go, and then put the bottom of the wrist strap through the loop, pull it tight, there we go, you got a wrist strap. The battery, I have misplaced the battery. I'm working in limited space here with just me. Angie's behind the camera somewhere, but I dropped the battery.
It's on your armrest.
Oh, it sure is. Thank you, Angie. See, if I didn't have my head screwed on, I'd probably lose that. So the battery goes on. You know, it's like these old cell phones. Remember the old candy bar style phones? So you just put line the top of the battery up with the top of the radio, push down. There you go. You got the battery on. There's a button on the bottom of it to release the battery. You push the button and then kind of pull it backwards away from the body of the radio. So there you go. Oh, and yeah, all of the people with working eyeballs, if you think I'm talking too much, too bad, because the descriptions are for all the people without working eyeballs. So a lot of these videos don't really give a lot of description, so we're giving lots of description. To put the belt clip on the back of the battery, the belt clip attaches to the battery, not to the radio, which is I kind of wish that it was attached to the radio, not the battery, so that each battery didn't need its own belt clip. But it's what we got. And lining the belt clip up, putting the belt clip on the battery is a little bit fiddly. You have to squeeze it and line the bottom of the belt clip up with the top of the battery. There's a slot there. You just kind of have to line it up. You line it up and then push down. It snaps into place. There we go. So we got the battery. We got the belt clip. The antenna screws into the top of the radio on the left. Pretty standard. As a point of interest to probably nobody, the only radio I've seen that has the antenna connector on the right, and I always used to joke that it was British, which is probably a stupid joke, but anyway, was the Quansheng UV-K5. Everything else has it on the left. So we've got, you just screw that in. There we go. We've got an antenna. We now have a fully assembled radio, and we can put this box away Oh, I should probably talk about the charging cradle. It's got the line cord hardwired in, so it's a straight 100, I assume 120 volts. I don't know if it's switching and multi voltage, so I don't know if it's 110 to 240, so you can use it with a plug adapter somewhere else, or if it's strictly 110. Someone who has one that can maybe look at the label on the bottom maybe can tell us someday in the comments. But the battery actually, the radio actually slips into this charger, and the charger holds it pretty snug without any real problems, or it doesn't feel sloppy like some of them do. All right, so we're gonna go over the physical description. Of course, the back panel, as I mentioned, is the battery and the hole for the wrist strap, which is on the left. The top of the radio has, from left to right, you've got the antenna, as I mentioned, an SMA male on the radio, SMA female on the antenna. To the right of that is a flashlight, LED, that I don't know why the Chinese manufacturers feel like all their radios have to have them, but they do. To the right of that is the on-off and volume knob. It's a nice big knob that's pretty easy to get a hold of. On the right side is our two connectors covered by rubber covers. The top one, if you flip the cover down, looks like a plastic cover. If you flip that down, you've got the speaker mic connection. It's Kenwood style connector. You can also use it to program with. Below that is another cover which actually flips upwards. Instead of down, the speaker mic connector comes down, the other one goes up, but there's a USB-C connector that's strictly for charging. You can't program with it, it's only for charging. On the left is on the left side of the radio is the push to talk, and below the push to talk are two programmable buttons. I believe you can only program them using the PC programming software, which I have not looked at yet. Interestingly, they have some tactile markings on them. The top one has one bump, one dot. The bottom one has two. They're not terribly defined, but they are there. If you have fairly sensitive fingers, you should be able to discern them. Okay, so then the front of the radio, we've got a screen, which is going to be of little use to some of us. And then below the screen, on the right side, most of the right side, for about, I guess half the space between the screen and the keypad, or between the screen and the keypad, about half the space below the screen to the bottom of the radio is a speaker, maybe an inch and a half. And then you have the keypad. Now the keypad's laid out a little bit unusual. Directly to the left of the speaker are four buttons. There's the menu button at the top, which is kind of a large, I guess you might call it a trapezoid shaped button. It's like wider on the top than it is on the bottom. That's the function button. Then there's an up arrow, a down arrow, and the exit button, which is another sort of trapezoid shaped button, which is opposite of the menu button in that it's shorter on the top than on the bottom. And those are A, B, C, and D DTMF tones when you're transmitting. The keypad, the number pad, is on its side, sort of like the Bofeng and the Osheng radios, so that you've got across the top, top to bottom, or sorry, left to right, top to bottom. So it's the first row is 1, 2, 3, star, 4, 5, 6, and 0. And the next row is 7, 8, 9, and the pound sign on the bottom. The pound sign key is also labeled F, and that's a quick function key that allows you to have access to several different quick functions. Oh, and one other thing, the 5 key does have a tactile marking on the number 5. It's not very prominent, but again, if you have sensitive fingers, you'll be able to find it. But it's there. So there's some kind of I suppose maybe accidental accessibility things going on right from the start. So let's look at how the menus function and whatnot. When you turn it on, well, we're going to turn this one on because it's not programmed, but when you turn it on,
welcome, channel mode 1, 6.
It's got 16 channels programmed into it. Don't know what's in them because shortly after I got my first one, I reset it. So I don't know what these are, but I suspect that they're not in bands that we can transmit in legally, probably. And I think out of the box, this one is probably set to wide open. If you buy it from Amazon or somewhere like that, chances are pretty good that they have turned on the FCC limit so that it transmits only in the amateur bands. And we'll talk about the hidden menu here in a minute. But there are a couple of useful features or a couple of useful things that we should know. Okay, so this is the radio that's actually been programmed. There are a couple of these features that aren't going to be very useful. The F key with number 4 supposedly will determine the frequency of a nearby radio, and you can program it. But I don't think that's going to be very useful if you can't see what the frequency is on your display. F and then 0 will turn on the FM radio. F and 5 will bring up the NOAA weather radio channels. Now, I think, and I'm not really sure about this, but I think that the NOAA weather radio channels might be squelched such that they'll only come on or unsquelch if they hear the weather alert tone. But I'm not sure about that, because when you enter that mode with F and 5, okay, so here we are, F and 5, and we've got the weather on, and I actually have it tuned to the weather station in my area. You'll see that there is no weather playing, but in order to hear it, you have to press the monitor key, which is a momentary short press of the top programmable function key.
Tuesday, west winds 15 to 20 knots, becoming northwest 10 to 15 knots.
There you go. And this comes in pretty good. To get out of that, you just press F5 again.
Frequency mode.
There we are. And the other fairly useful thing is F and 3, which changes from frequency mode to memory channel mode.
Channel mode 1. Frequency mode.
And that's a toggle. A couple of these other things are toggles, but they don't speak. For example, F2 changes between the A VFO and the B VFO, or the A band and the B band. But you can't tell we can't tell which one you're on because it doesn't tell you. F and 1 cycles between the different bands. There are seven bands defined. Not terribly useful to us, I don't think, because you can just really enter any frequency indirectly between 50 megahertz to 600. That's the wide receive range, but of course you can only transmit by default either the predefined amateur bands, or if you open it up, 136 to 174 and 400 to 470. But I mean, you can, the hidden menus also have, you can open up full coverage transmit from 136 all the way up to 600, but the ranges outside of the 136 to 174 and 400 to 470 have super low power output, and they're not very clean, and I really wouldn't recommend them. All right, so the important things here are the menus. So to get to the menu, you press the menu key, which is the top key right below the display on the left, very left edge of the front panel.
Menu.
Okay, so you have the menu, but as you arrow through these menus, which, oh, that's another important thing. It times out after a very short time, maybe 10 seconds. But when you go into the menu, the up and down keys are backwards. So if you press the menu key and you press up,
Initialization.
it actually goes down from menu 1 to menu 51. So in order to go up, you actually press the down arrow key, which I think is actually what a lot of these Chinese radios do, which is kind of backwards and counterintuitive. Good news about that is that all of the menus are directly accessible numerically. So you can press, for example, menu and 8, and then menu to enter the menu number 8, which is the frequency direction, and you can set that to 0 for simplex, 1 for let me get this right, 1 for plus, 2 for minus, and all the menus work like that. They all have their settings that can be set just by entering numbers. So even though they don't talk, and they don't talk as you scroll through them, you'll only hear the menu tag when you hit the menu button to enter the menu. So for example, if I were to press menu and then press the up arrow like 5 times from where I was and hit menu again, there's power. We'll hit 0 for low, menu again to confirm it, and then the exit button at the bottom of that row of 4 to get out of the menu. So the menu tags don't speak until you actually enter the menu. Fortunately, all the important menus will say what they are when you enter them. There are a whole pile of them from 2021 onwards that don't have voice tags, and there are no voice tags once you enter the menus. But as I say, they're all accessible with the numbered keypad. Like you can just enter 0, 1, or 2, 0 for on, 1 for off, or 0 for the default and 1 for the other, and they're all documented in the manual. I'm planning to actually do another more concise write-up for blind operators, another eyes-free guide, and we'll document all of them there. So as far as spoken accessibility things, it's okay. It's not great, but it's not horrible. It's definitely usable, but there's definitely some room for improvement. And fortunately, it appears that these radios, unlike some of the others, are firmware upgradable. So if Quansheng releases firmware updates, we should be able to install those and take advantage of any feature enhancements and so forth. So we're gonna go into a little bit of, because people ask, first of all, turning on the hidden menus. The hidden menus allow you to open up additional transmit ranges and also set the band limits. So if you turn radio off, hold down the PTT button and the top function key and turn it on, it's just going to say,
Welcome. Frequency mode.
so it's not going to say anything different, but it drops you into menu number 52, and that's one of the transmit ranges. And there it is. It just timed out. In order to sort of be compliant, we're going to put this radio into the mode where the ham band transmit is limited. So we're going to go menu, and that's menu 53, and then we're going to hit number 1 for FCC, and then menu button to confirm it. There we are, and then exit. You can change it to the UK band limits, European Union band limits, and then I think there's another option for Asia, for region 3, and there might be another one too. If you want full coverage, transmit from 136 to 174 and 400 to 470, you hit 0 in menu 53. You can turn on the other out of band transmit capability with menus 52, 54, 55, 56, 57, and I think 58. And I'm not clear on what each of those does, but again, because the power on those is very low and it's not up to FCC spectral purity standards and so forth. The only one that you might want to turn on is 220. That's a 200 to 300 megahertz, but it's not up to FCC emissions purity spec, and it's maybe half a watt. Wouldn't really recommend doing it. It's probably not worth bothering with. So there's that, and then the final thing that I was really intrigued by, and that I think is going to be interesting, is the over-the-air programming. So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna clone my working radio over to the new one that I just pulled out of the box. Let's see, where am I? Is this one? Is this the one that? Yep, that's the one that. Yep, that's okay. That's the one that That's the one that I've already programmed. This is the one that I haven't. So that we can hear what this thing's doing, I've got my trusty Radioddity GD77 here. I've got it set to 440.0, which is where I'm going to set these to clone. So to do the cloning, you start the transmit radio by holding down the bottom programmable function key with the PTT while you turn the radio on. Actually, you do that with both. Okay, so we got
Welcome. Channel mode 1.
Actually,
3.
you know what? I better actually change this to frequency mode and then do it. Okay, frequency mode. And we'll do that to the other one.
Welcome. Channel mode 1. 6. Frequency mode.
There we are. So in order to get these ready to program, we'll turn it on with the bottom function key held down with the PTT. We'll turn it on.
Welcome. Frequency mode.
And we'll do the same thing with this one, with the one that needs to be programmed.
Welcome. Frequency mode.
Okay, and for the radio that's sending, oh, actually we're going to set them both to 440.
4 4 0 0 0 0 0.
And then this one.
4 4 0 0 0 0.
And we'll start this one receiving by pressing the cancel button. And we'll start this one to transmit by pressing the menu button. And there we go. Okay, they're sending the data over. You can hear it. I'll be interested to know if anybody ever actually decodes this and sort of figures out the data format that they're using. I don't think there's any non-visual way to know that this is completed, short of listening to it on another radio. So, and this is the first time I've done it, so we'll find out together. But apparently it has to count up to 120, and when it gets to 120, it's done. And I don't know about anybody else, but I have not been keeping count. Kind of interesting that it does the programming in like 1 second bursts rather than doing it all sort of all at once. And it sounds like we're done. Okay, so if we turn these off, now let's see if this one,
Welcome. Frequency mode.
let's see what we got for channels.
1, 1, 0.
It looks like
1.
it cloned all the memories. Now what I'm also interested to see is if it cloned the band limits. So let's see, I've got this one, and we're going to go to we're going to go to 410. And actually we're going to go up a little bit to get rid of that. And you'll hear, it doesn't transmit. That's the original radio. This is the one that got cloned, 2, and we're going to check it, 410 0 0 5, and it looks like it took the band limits. Well, that's kind of nifty. Did it take the NOAA weather radio setting?
Miles per hour.
It sure
Becoming
did.
Northwest after midnight.
And finally, did it take the AM aircraft menu setting to turn on AM for the aircraft band? Well, let's see. I guess actually, what am I doing? Oh, I know why. Okay, there we go. That's better. Okay. Now, mind you, I haven't heard anything from our airport, but there it is. AM is working. Okay, yeah. So it looks like it cloned not just the memory channels, but all of the other settings as well. So that's pretty impressive. I guess if you had a whole pile of these and wanted to program them all at once, you could just do it. Just put all of them in the clone mode, hit cancel on a bunch of them, hit hit menu on the one that you're cloning from, and you can get your whole club set up with a bunch of radios all at once. Okay, so that's just a brief overview of the accessibility, and just kind of a brief overview of the radio, and as it relates to how it might be used by someone who is blind, and some of the possible shortcomings or sort of workarounds that we need. And essentially the workarounds are that we are going to need to know what numbers to put in to program it, what numbers go to which menus and so forth, and fortunately those are all pretty well defined. The speech feedback at the moment isn't terribly helpful, at least in the menus, but the memory channels all speak. When you scroll through those, they'll say the memory channel number, but for the most part, and then of course all the beeps are the same, so you can't tell what something is toggled to that way. So for example, changing your power level with the F and number 6, you won't know what power level you're on. So the best way to do that is through the menu system, where you can hit power and then 0 for low, 1 for medium, 2 for high, and change it that way. If anyone has any questions, of course you can leave them in the comments. You can email me. You can find me on all the usual suspects, but kb5elv@arrl.net should get to me if you have any questions or what have you. Great. Again, so thanks again to Quansheng for sending me radios to play with. Look forward to hearing from y'all if you have any questions, and thanks for listening.